Welcome to Data Visualization Training in the SPEC Lab. I'm Ben Graham, and we work really hard on data visualization in the lab because we create a lot of new knowledge from data. And if you want to communicate that knowledge to other people, you have to do it in pictures. Most people are not numbers people. You can't give them tables and figures. You have to give them something beautiful, something intuitive. And pictures are, an incredibly effective way to do that. So we're going to be working in R. We're going to be working in the ggplot2 package, right? And so most of these modules, they're really focused on the different commands within ggplot2 that are going to allow you to manipulate data, to create these figures, to work with colors and labels and all these different things. But this video tells us where are we going with the big picture? What are we trying to accomplish with a figure? And a lot of times what we're going to ask you to do is actually draw out a figure on the whiteboard, on a piece of paper before you go to write the code in R. We spend actually a fair amount of time talking about what is the visualization we need, right? What's the idea we need to communicate, and what's the best way to do that? So there's 4 principles we follow creating good data visualizations, right? We're aiming for something that's precise, accurate, and honest, right? We are trying to communicate the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, right? We need figures that are intuitive, right? That don't require a lot of mental labor on behalf of the people who are receiving this information. Somebody should look at the figure and in a few seconds understand what it is we're trying to communicate. Not in a minute, not in 30 seconds, but in like 3 seconds, right? Really quick, really simple. Figures need to be parsimonious, no excess information. Tell them what you need them to know, and don't distract them with other things. And we want elegant figures, right? This is the math meets art. This is the science, meeting the creative, right? So we do want to create beautiful things. Okay, so I'm going to pick on Fox News here. You can find a lot of different examples of lies, damned lies, and statistics, right? People actually manipulating the data, manipulating axes on figures to lie with data. Here you'll see that the 8.6% unemployment rate at the end of this figure is actually higher than the 8.8% here, right? This data has been manipulated to disguise a downward trend that's in the data. If you've got a precise and accurate figure, right, you actually see a pretty significant drop in the unemployment rate in those last couple of months, right? So this is sort of not doing dishonest things, right? Not manipulating in some way. But it's not just avoiding blatant dishonesty. Here's a figure, a bar plot, where we're really kind of zoomed in on the y-axis here, where the y-axis doesn't start until 17%. So it really is, this figure is created to emphasize the difference in the size of federal spending between a Democratic blueprint and the average during the previous 2 presidencies, right? And so somebody said, no, that's a dishonest graph to zoom in that way. Here's an honest graph with bars starting at 0. And that is a fundamental principle. Bars start at 0. But here, this graph has been manipulated too, in the sense that a lot of excess white space has been included at the top of the figure, again, to de-emphasize the difference between these different policies, right? And so if we want to sort of communicate as clearly as we can, with all the accuracy and precision we can muster, you want to manage, keep the amount of white space at the top kind of, I don't know, normal, appropriate. I don't know what the right word is. And you definitely want to have your bars starting at 0, right? That's going to kind of give the most, accurate view to your audience. We also work really hard to make our figures intuitive, right? This is about shifting labor from the viewer to us. We're going to work really hard so the audience doesn't have to, right? And here, I'm going to talk a little bit about the difference between like a pie chart, which are beautiful. There's a reason MBAs love them, and bar plots, right? And so you can get some beauty with some pie charts. But if you've got slices of that pie that are relatively similar in size, the human eye is really bad, or the human brain is really bad at distinguishing which is larger than the other, right? So we're trying to compare dragons and orcs. This pie chart's not the most efficient way to do it, right? A really simple line plot, and we can tell that there are more dragons than orcs in this imaginary world, right? And so choosing a figure that makes whatever that piece of information you need them to extract that makes, again, look at it in a second or two, pull out that information. Bar plots are nice for that. When we're picking shading schemes, even when we're picking our colors, right, we want to communicate things to people so they don't need the legend, right? So they're not going back and forth between the legend, doing all these mental gymnastics. Here with the meetings per state, I might assume Texas has the most meetings, and Idaho and all these states have the fewest meetings, and it's really hard for me to guess with the checkers and the stripes and the gray, which would be in the middle. But I'm pretty sure Texas and Ohio and have the most. Okay, turns out no, that's not even the case, right? That's 2 meetings per month. So the 0, okay, that was intuitive. But why are stripes the most, right? We can pick a shading scheme that people can intuit without looking at the legend. And so heat maps are really nice here, right? We can move from green to red. People understand that move from light to dark, from cool to warm, right? So there's a lot of different color palettes we can use for a heat map or for a heat chart, but you want to pick a color scheme that allows people to understand as much as possible without using a legend. Legend should be there, but often, and this goes to like, instead of just having labels in a legend, if you've got a few lines running through a plot, can you label them in the plot so people can just look at the body of that plot, extract that meaning really quickly? Okay. Parsimony, right? We don't want to do too many things in the same figure. What is your point? What do you need to communicate? Don't include any extra information, because if people are, any information you put in front of somebody, they're going to work to interpret it. Don't make them do work that you don't need them to do. So only give them what you need them to see. And then there's this elegance piece, right? And sometimes we take what we do in R and we'll feed it into Photoshop or something like that, and we'll kind of add some of these touches, like I think these half globes are beautiful. I've got some other issues with like sort of how hard it is to actually read these plots as a comparison. I think it's actually, this is not an intuitive figure, but it is an elegant figure, right? This is the data plus art, right? Making people happy with beauty. Okay. But elegance, it doesn't have to be, done in Photoshop or something like this. We don't have to, sometimes the elegance comes from a lot of simplicity. And so here, this is just three different time trends, right? You've got a birth rate, a death rate, and a population on a total population line over time. If Chris Ferris were here, he would tell us, I hate, plots with 2 different axes, right? Because the birth and death rate are percentages, and so they can share the same axis, but then we've got our total population sort of in millions or hundreds of, I guess, in millions of people. And so having those 2 axes is probably a bridge too far. Maybe we take the total population line out of this figure and put it in a different figure, or a different plot within the same figure, something to that effect. But I really like how they do this sort of zoom in on the Great Leap Forward. Okay, so you've got this huge famine and you've got birth rates plunging at the same time, death rates are spiking. Really nice to zoom in there. I like the shaded area for the one-child policy. So sometimes you can use some of these tricks to really create something that's elegant, that's intuitive, that's communicating a lot without a lot of work for the reader. This is the kind of thing that we're going for. And so we're heading into all these modules with ggplot2, where we're working on different commands and ways to manipulate this. This is the big picture of where we're heading. So good luck.